All right. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Rashmi Livamula, and I'm the Director of Operations for Digital Page. I hope you enjoyed the first full day of the hackathon with sessions and working on your solutions. So we're ready to get the second day started. We have tons planned for you today. I'm excited to introduce our keynote speaker, as well as our first speaker for today, Ashvin Parmar. Ashvin is the Vice President Practice Leader within Financial Services, Insights and Data at Capgemini. He is a business-oriented and visionary IT executive within the global financial services industry with over 25 years of experience in capital markets, banking, insurance, e-commerce, and enterprise infrastructure management. He is responsible for leading the development of applied capabilities in AI, ML, artificial intelligence and machine learning, analytics, platform, and data fabric, as well as driving large transformation programs. So some general housekeeping before we get started. If you have a question, please use the chat function. Ashvin will be incorporating your questions throughout the session, so our chat moderators will be able to make sure to get to your questions. So please use the chat function on YouTube. So without further ado, I'd like to pass it off to Ashvin. Welcome, Ashvin.
Very good. Thank you for having me. And, whoever that was that you introduced, I'd like to meet that person. Very impressive. Good morning. Good day, everybody. I've been looking at the hackathon topics over the last day or so. And, a lot of the topics tend to be how do you, use data and technology to, to advance your career. And so I figured, I'll balance that out by touching on some of the other, softer leadership type of skills to help you propel and have a wonderful career ahead, right? So, I promise we will not be talking about, any of the technology stuff, today. Although, I'm happy to do that offline. Feel free to ping me, and we can talk about the trends and all the wonderful stuff that we're doing in sustainability and helping our clients in banking and insurance. So from the tools from success perspective, there are a lot of things that can be covered, right? So clearly, we're not going to be able to make you experts on all the soft skills in an hour, but I'll try and touch on a few topics, just to intrigue your interest in some of these other non-technical areas, that can help you, and then you can do some research on your own, to get going, right? So let's get started. From the career development framework perspective, I think this is the framework that Harvard Business School had put out. You probably already are past the reflect phase, right, where you already know what interests you, what gets you going. You probably already are also done with your education options, and then now starting to think about the career ahead, and now getting into some of the develop the sales and experience type of things, and then expanding your networks and whatnot, right? So as we go through some of the topics, I will cover some of the things in this framework, right? To be successful, one of the most important skills, in my opinion, is communication, and it's not just the written and verbal communication, because clearly that is quite important. But there are certain subtle things that if you are mindful of, you can use it to your advantage, and help you present yourself better, engage the people you're working with better, and so forth. First such tool is the ability to read the body language, right? So body language, as you know, is a form of a normal verbal communication, right, that involves body movement. Gesturing can also be termed as body language, and it's absolutely non-verbal means of communication. But body language also includes the facial expression, your posture, the micro signals that you give as you engage the other party. People in the workplace can convey a great deal of information without even speaking, right, through the non-verbal communication, and your ability to to read that, will only help you. So, what we are trying to deliver to the one whom we are communicating through the verbal means might not be exactly the same to the what your non-verbal means are doing. And then by mastering the body language, you can again read the room, drive the communication in a more effective way. So then, what is the body language, right? So as I said, body language plays a big role in the intuition, as it gives us messages about the other person. We can interpret it at an intuitive level, right? The body language, essentially comes down to three things. One is the gesture, second is your face, and the third is the posture, right? So, while mouth tells one story, your gesture and the posture may be able to tell a different story. And there are, many different, gesture clusters, as they say. The more common ones are, openness is one of them, for example. So, several gestures indicate openness, sincerity, things like, having the open hands, unbuttoned collar, leaning slightly forward in a chair, removing the coat, uncrossing the arms and legs, those type of things, right? So when people are proud of what they have done, they usually show their hands quite openly, and then they don't put their hands in the pocket or hide behind the back, that kind of stuff, right? The second common gesture clusters is defensiveness, right? So people who are defensive, usually tend to have tense body, rigid body, arms or legs, tightly, crossed, right? Eyes, glancing sideways, but they avoid the eye contact, those type of things. The third gesture cluster is about yeah, evaluation gestures, right? So you say that the other person is being thoughtful, is being considering seriously what the other person is saying. Typically, this includes like a tilted head or hands to the cheek, leaning forward, chin stroking, eyeglasses in the mouth like this, that kind of stuff, right? The next one is the suspicion, secrecy, rejection, doubt, those type of things. Right? So these are a lot of the negative, emotions that typically communicated by the sideway glance or avoiding the eye contact, shifting body away, from the partner that you're speaking with, touching, rubbing nose, that kind of stuff. There are things about, there are a lot of signals about lying as well, like, touching the back of the neck, stuff of that nature, right? There are gestures like readiness where, you raise your hand, or nervousness where, the party is clearing the throat, covering the mouth, hands, finger tapping, that kind of stuff, right? But, I think, if you were to master learning the body language, I'll say, focus on the face, right? Face is a mirror inside of what the other person is really thinking, what the other person's attitudes and emotions and feelings are. So learn how to read the facial expressions. And on the flip side, you can also use the poker face, to really hide what you are thinking, if that's what the situation you're in, warrants it, right? So let's look at an example of the body language, right? So they say, you should not talk about politics in a professional setting. So here we go. We start with a picture, which became viral, about the tensions at the G7 summit, back in 2018. Right, but the reason I selected this picture is not so much the actual substance which was being discussed, but this picture has a lot of body language nuances. So to understand the point that I was trying to make in the previous slide, right? So this was a picture taken during the G7 summit, as I mentioned, where there was a sharp disagreement over President Trump's decision to impose the higher taxes on the aluminum and steel. It was primarily targeting the state-backed Chinese products. but would have larger impact on Europe and US, and there were some disagreements in terms of how to deal with that, right? So, a picture of the in the picture, the two main characters are the German Chancellor Merkel. She's displaying less than friendly body language, right? And then you see Donald Trump being the center of focus for for the room, right? Merkel with her hands firmly placed on the table, she's staring down at the Trump, who's seated with the arms folded and eyes glaring. You can see the Japanese Prime Minister, or I should say, late Japanese Prime Minister Abe, standing next to Trump. He's also, has the folded arms, but that folded arm is slightly different than the folded arm that you see on Trump. The Prime Minister, is basically, crossing that to, protect himself, right? He doesn't want to be part of whatever the heated discussion that is going on, right? The Donald Trump's crossed arm, right, means that he has shut down from any other viewpoint, from what he has already made, where Merkel stands so that she's not going to change her mind. Normally, when you have somebody who is hovering over the other party, right, that's a stance of dominance. But in this particular picture, if you look at the posture that Trump is taking, right, with the legs wide open, this is like a king's posture, right, where you're not allowed to sit around the king, and he is while he's sitting down and is being stared down, he is commanding whatever the conversation that is occurring in this room. And if you look at, I don't know how big your screen is, but if you look at the facial expressions, right, Trump seems to be slightly amused, whereas Merkel looks fatigued and tired, and she's dumbfounded that they whatever they're talking is still they have to be uh, you know um, so I lost my chain of thought. But she seems to be not happy with the conversation. If you look at Macron, he seems to be aligning with with Merkel, but he's also having that alpha male type of a posture with the hands like the silverback, right, in the jungle type of a things. There's a more that you can read about this viral picture. They have even analyze the body language of the British Prime Minister May. You can only see the little bit of the head and so forth, right? The point is there's a lot that you can derive from just reading the room, right? I'll give you another anecdote, right? If you go to a restaurant and you have a waiter, generally they are standing up, you're sitting down, right? And, at least in US and North America, I should say, they rely heavily on the tips. By being standing up and staring down at the patron, right, they will be in the aggressive stance. But, what disarms them is, they're taking the order. So they're there to service you, right? So that softens the situation. But, this waiter can drive additional tips. It can sell more expensive things on the menu if they make just one adjustment, which is if they come down from being looking down to the eye level. Studies show that they can drive 26% more in terms of the tips that they can derive, and again they can push a lot more expensive items on the menu, right? So body language and mastering that could help you, right? So I'll give you another example of how you can use that to your advantage. So one such technique is called mirroring, right? So a mirroring is when the two people display a similar body language, similar voice tone, a similar diction, right? Studies suggest that the people who mirror each other, they will seem to be more likable, more persuasive, right? If you walk into a client meeting and you don't know who the decision makers are, right? And if you see, person A mirroring person B, then the chances are that person A looks up to B, maybe is reporting into person B. And so whatever you're pitching, that you want to be, make person B the focus of your attention, right? So the studies show that people, tend to mirror often it will go out of their ways. They tend to be, a lot more generous, more likable, helpful, etc. Right? Um, as I was saying, we're talking about the waiters, scenario in the previous slide. Servers can also, increase the tips, and this time by 68%, if they simply, are perceived more likable by the people that they mirror, right? Mirror people, as I mentioned, they're a lot more helpful. They will pick up the drop pens 100% of the time, versus the unmirror people, who would do 33%, of the time, right? So there is a real science behind using body language to your advantage, and more socially skilled people use mirroring consciously, and then once you start doing that unconsciously, right, to create the rapport with the folks that you are conversing with. Not exactly a body language topic, but a topic which it's around the other organ, right? Your mind, right? The brain is a very smart and powerful thing, but you can easily fool it, right? So there are lots of optical illusions out there that you can find, right? Where even if the picture has a piece of the picture missing, the brain will construct it, right? So there are many ways to to fool the body, but can you just by the body language, can you fool your mind? And it turns out that you can, right? So if you put a pencil or a pen, right, this way between your lips, you will right away start to feel, sad and not depressed, I guess is stronger, but you will not start to feel, happy, right? Versus if you put it, sideways, right, like the picture on the right hand side, your immediately will start, to feel happier, right? And this thing, the results of, these are very, very reliable, right? There are a lot of, studies done, and the effect, of this pen or pencil trick, right? It demonstrates the facial feedback, theory of emotion, right? So the idea is, very simple. The brain is constantly monitoring, what is happening in your body, right? It analyzes things like the muscle tensions, your posture, your heart rate, your breathing, the facial expressions, right? To judge how you yourself are feeling, right? So, if you want to put yourself in a happier, position, and you want to boost your mood, this is a very simple trick, to get that done. The other technique that I use is the deep breathing, right? So if you're in a tense situation, just counting down as you breathe in, counting up as you breathe out, and just by focusing on that countdown, studies so that your blood pressure drops, and you feel more relaxed, more in control of the situation. So you can use this to your advantage as well. All right. So, communication, as is a two-way street. But understanding, the process of, listening can help you, become more efficient in terms of the type of communication, that you do, right? So the steps are, you get the message, you focus on the stimuli, part of it, you attach the meaning to that, you interpret that with the frame of reference that you have, then you decide whether you want to do something with it, and then then you provide the feedback to the person that you are communicating, right? So they're having that feedback, ensuring that the message, whatever it may be, it is well understood, is critical. And this is the case with all types of communication, not just verbal or written, even in the normal verbal or plain listening type of communication as well. This is critical to understand. Uh, in terms of the the different communication styles, there are three main ones, right? So there's a passive communication where you don't stand up for yourself, or you defend your attitude or belief. There's an aggressive communication, right, where you try to get your way through sometimes bullying, threats even, right? Then there's the assertive, communication where the attitudes and beliefs that you hold, you stay true to that, you defend it, but at the same time you respect the rights, of the others, right? And while intuitively you will say, I think assertive is the best way, to communicate. Depending on the situation and the particular scenarios, you may lean on other type of communications to to get your point across, right? But in general, scenarios, right, the effective communications include actively engaging, being focused, paying attention, asking probing questions, not just for the sake of asking questions, but to understand the topic better, to propel the communication forward, that type of stuff, right? So effective communication also includes having an open mind, ability to synthesize, and then providing the feedback. And on the flip side, ineffective communications, where you are easily distracted, and so forth, right? So I want to pivot from the communication, from the non-verbal side to how do you use all of these techniques to tell a good story, right? Great leaders tend to be excellent a storyteller, right? So I would recommend a book by Simon Sinek. He popularized the golden circle, as a model, which is simple but very powerful, model for the leaders, who are inspirational, right? So the model reasoning is quite simple, really. It starts the message by expressing the why of your story, right? The emotional side of the things, right? And then it lets the audience know how and what you do, right? So there's a very good TED talk on the golden circle. I highly recommend you check it out. I think it's available on my YouTube as well, where in this TED talk, Simon starts with a very provocative question. He's saying, hey, why is Apple so innovative, right? Apple, year after year, they continue to push the boundaries of innovation, and in the process, they have repeatedly changed and transformed, industries, everything from, music to media, and how they're able to do this, even though, at the core, they're just a computer company, right? Just like, well, actually, they're more than that now, but historically they've been primarily focused on the computer industry, just like IBM, Microsoft, or Dell. So Simon in this TED talk and in this book, he claims that he's made a discovery on how the world works. Right, there's a pattern for the successful companies, successful people, and he calls that the golden circle of why, how, and what. Right, so what is, everybody knows what they do. How is, some people know how they do it, but very few people, he claims, know why they do certain things. Right, what is their purpose, what is their cause, what's their belief, etc. So people, normally when they're storytelling, they do outside in approach, right? But the inspired leaders, according to Simon, they work in a completely opposite way, right? Which is the inside out, right? They start with the why. So, in this talk, he says the Apple was, if he was like every other, company, their marketing message would be something like, hey, we make these amazing computers. They're beautifully designed, very simple to use, they're friendly, etc. Do you want to buy one, right? Now, that kind of messaging, would that inspire, the cult-like following, that Apple enjoys, and the first trillion-dollar company on the planet, right? Probably not. So, then Simon says, okay, let me show you how they really communicate, right? So he says, the way Apple marketing communicates, he says, everything that we do, we believe in changing the status quo and thinking differently, right? The way we change the status quo and by is by having our product beautifully designed, simple to use, and user friendly. And we just happen to make great computers. We want to buy one, right? So now very different messaging, right? You probably are much too young to remember some of the very classic Apple campaigns. Back in 1984, they introduced the Macintosh personal computer at a Super Bowl, with a clear and creative vision. At the time, the Apple's board of directors, hated the video. They called it the worst commercial they have ever seen. However, despite the doubts that they had, they went forward, with the ad campaign, and they were able to sell upwards of 70,000 computers in the 100 days, twice as much as they had originally anticipated. In late 1990s, Apple ran a campaign. It was called "Here is to the Crazy One," right? So you go to Times Square in New York, and you'll see, picture of Gandhi with the lighter, right? And with the logo saying, "Think different," right? Not think differently, but think different. Um, so they also took out a number of ads in newspaper and magazine, right, where they featured revolutionary thinkers like Einstein and Muhammad Ali and Gandhi, as I mentioned, Bob Dylan, and so forth, right? And so the point is, instead of telling a story from how, what, and then why, do it the other way around. So a practical application of this would be, let's say, if you're pitching an idea to your manager, or pitching something to your client, you can start by saying something like, hey, would you like to save $100,000 or $100 million or whatever it is. And then you say, yeah, I would. And they say, okay, here is the three, four things that you can do. And then here is what we can do, type of things, right? So you can apply this in the practical way as well, right? Even if you don't want to be the Nelson Mandela of the world. By the way, I think one of the prize that the digital page is giving away is this book. So I don't know the exact rules of how do you win one, but I'm sure they will cover that subsequent to this. Now the opposite point of view to start with why is don't start with why, right? And so you scratch your head like, what the heck are you talking about? So let me try and explain. Let's say Rasmili invites you to a dinner at her home, and you walk in to the home, and the first thing you notice is this really very ugly, bright yellow paint in her foyer. And if you say, hey, why did you paint this ugly yellow, right? So immediately she will get put on a defensive stance, right? She has to now defend, um, you know, um, um, her decision to paint, this yellow color. Clearly, they think it is fabulous, right? But you may not. But instead, if you go in and say, hey, this looks, wonderful. How did you end up selecting it? Then she might say, hey, I was in a vacation in Hawaii and was watching sunset and beautiful colors. And there was this one patch of, yellow that really, stood out to me. And, that took me to my happy place. And, every time I see this paint, I feel happy. And that, so now, the context has changed, right? Instead of having her, being on the defensive, now you know the story behind, and then you know better not to say anything bad about anything Amber in the home, right? So but beyond putting on the defensive side, the the main objection to start with why is that the process and procedure that is central to the marketing question that we just talked about, is one where communication is outside of the organization, right? In that case, the critics, claim that Simon is right on, right? By the time, you have time, have a need to communicate others about what you do, what you're doing, etc. The benefit of start with why approach is quite clear. But one of the leading critic of this is a Google director named Alberto Savio, where he says, well, while start with why is important, if you are an engineer, if you are an innovator, then how do you drive discovery of new why, right? If you just start with the why, so this starts along precisely the opposite path, right? But it is more common to the scientists versus in marketing people, right? Who are at the the front end of innovation versus at the tail of getting your product and messaging out to the market, right? So very interesting viewpoint. I still think that the start with why in the most cases is a wonderful strategy in incorporating that into your communication style, but also be mindful of at times you might not want to start with why. All right, so moving this along, I am a little bit behind schedule, so I'm going to rush through a couple of the slides and then we'll go on to the next topic. There are a number of barriers to communications, and there are techniques that we have been touching on, which will allow you to get over this barrier, be that physical, perceptual, emotional, cultural, that kind of stuff, right? So you can read through that. Hopefully, I'm intriguing you enough, to go out and study up on some of these techniques and strategies, right, which can help you become a more effective communicator and more effective negotiator, and it will help you propel again as you go up in your career. So then the second thing that I want to talk about is how do you do effective negotiations? And then you wonder, hey, why do I don't want to be a salesperson? Why do I need to worry about negotiations, right? But the fact is, you constantly negotiate, right? Even if you're married, what side of the bed to sleep on, that's a negotiation. What to have for breakfast, that's a negotiation. So understanding negotiation strategies is another critical way to propel your career and get what you want, right? So let's make it real. So negotiation question could be, hey, I want a raise, but when do you ask for a raise? Do you ask, you walk into your manager's office Monday morning, 8 o'clock sharp, as soon as the person comes from the well rested from the weekend, or do you wait until Wednesday, where he or she has time to recoup and catch up and so forth, or do you do that at the end of the week on Friday afternoon, just as you're going for the weekend, saying, hey, let's negotiate on this salary. Is the question of getting raise or promotion or what have you, is that strictly based on the merit in terms of what you had delivered, the contribution that you made, or are there other factors that you have to be mindful of, right? So let's I'll take you to a different direction for a second. There was a joint study done between an Israeli entity and Columbia Business School, where they were looking at are the judicial rulings based solely on the laws and the facts, or the legal formalization holds that the judge apply again the legal reasons to the facts of the case, in a very rational, mechanical, and a deliberate manner, or there are other factors which impact the outcomes, right? And just the facts alone are not explaining the decisions judges make. The things like the psychological, political, social factors influence the ruling, right? Is it purely merits and facts based, or there are other things, right? So it turns out that there are other factors that may be in play, right? So if you look at, and I don't know why the animation stopped. There it is. So this chart, the bottom line basically shows the time of the day, right from when the court opens to when they conclude the day's work, and then the vertical line is how favorable the decision was to everybody goes to jail type of things at the bottom side of the things, right? So if you look at the chart, in the beginning of the day, the judge tends to be more lenient, and as the time goes by, the leniency diminishes. Then again it spikes up, and then again it starts to diminish a little bit, then again spikes up, and it goes down. So what the heck is happening here, right? If the facts are very similar, then you will anticipate a straight line, right? Or as close to a straight line as possible. So after looking through this, what they found is, just when the spike, the first spike was occurring, the judges had their morning snack, little bit of coffee, right? So little sugar in their system, and they started to become a little bit more lenient, right? And again, just before lunch, everybody goes to jail, but after lunch, they're being more lenient, but then you can see that it drops off dramatically after that, right? So there are factors other than just pure merit. I mean, in a perfect society, you would not have this, but there are things outside of merit which come into play. When you are talking about negotiations and so forth, so you need to be mindful of those type of things, right? So in terms of when do you ask for the raise, I'll look for some answers in the chat box based on this additional thing that you just learned, that there are other factors that can impact how the conversation goes, right? Okay, so then moving on, the whenever you are negotiating with another party, both sides have their needs and interests. They have their economics in terms of the price that they want to pay. They have the their BATNA, which is the best alternative to the negotiated agreement. So if the negotiation were to fall apart, what are the two three things options that they have to go forward, right? And then if there's an overlap and a common interest, adequate relationship and a communication channel, then you can get to an agreement where you clearly define the scope, the price, the terms of the negotiation, and so forth, right? So that's the construct of it, right? So let's look at at the next level. I mean, negotiations could be quite complex, but just to simplify the concept, let's say you're going to buy a car, right? So you have a buyer, you have a seller, right? Both of them has a range in terms of the ideal price, where they either want to buy or sell the car, or whatever the merchandise may be. And then if you don't have an overlap, right? Like the case on the the right hand side, if there's a gap between the maximum a buyer is willing to pay versus what the seller is able to give that the service at the lowest price, then the agreement is not possible in those cases, right? So you tend to um, go with your other alternatives. Maybe you go to other dealership, maybe you change the brand of car that you're trying to to build. But on the other hand, if there is an overlap, then the chances are you'll agree on a some price between that overlap area that you have. So a question for the audience here is, if you were to buying the car, and regardless of whether you're a buyer or a seller, should you be the first one to name your price, or should you let the other party do that? If you want to just type it into the chat, I'll be really curious to find out what you think. Is it better to to be the first to name the price? What do you guys think? Okay, I'm not sure whether my comments are not working or not. But in the interest of time, I'm going to move on. You can type in the psychology of the of the negotiations are, we tend to first is the right answer. Whoever said that is correct. The you tend to be mid in the middle when you're negotiating the price, right? So if you are first to make the bid, you'll tilt the price towards that, right? So negotiation price is not always right in between the spread that you have, but it's between your bid and the ask, right? So you should be the first one to make the make the bid. Okay, moving on. So negotiation outcome scenario, right? So let me give you an anecdote, right? So years ago, I was in a leadership workshop on negotiation, and they were doing an exercise, and so I got paired up with another colleague, and both of us were given two different criteria for us to negotiate. One party, in this case, I was the party who was buying a smaller company, and the other party was selling it. I was given the base price, the lowest price, some other concerns about assimilating the two cultures, and making decisions about the management and so forth. And on the seller side, because they were the small company, family-owned company, they also had the price range, but there were other criteria which were given to them, like the maintaining the culture, taking care of their people, and so forth. And so they gave us 20 minutes to negotiate, and then in the end they showed us the outcome of first showed us what we were given to negotiate on, and what a optimal negotiated contract looks like, right? And I had a negotiated price lower than the lower range that I had, and I had fired all the executives from the other side and so forth. And when I looked at that, I said, damn, I did pretty well, right? But in the hindsight, I was falling in the I win, you lose, a type of the outcome scenario, right? While I had a short-term win, next time these guys are in the market, or their network is in the market, they will say, hey, be careful with this buyer, right? They don't play by the ball, right? So in the long run, it will become lose lose type of scenario, right? So you want to be in the the quadrant where I win, you win type of things, right? So instead of me negotiating hard, with this, my partner, if I had asked, hey, what are the things which are important, to you, right? And clearly they wanted to secure, the positions for some of their, family people who are working in the business. We could have said, hey, okay, we will do some overlap, and then I could have gotten, better price, right? That would have been a better, scenario. So there are, two types of negotiations. First one is called the distributive negotiations, right? So the most of the distributive, feature is to, you operate as a zero sum, game. The gain made by one person is the loss incurred, by the other party, right? And each person involved in the negotiation defines, the ultimate point where the settlement, will be made. And the seller's goal is to negotiate the high price. Buyer is to negotiate the low price. Similar to the car example, that we were, talking about, right? So some of the tenets of the negotiation strategies for the distributive negotiations are, I want it all, or you play the good cop, bad cop. Here, let me go ask my manager, right? What he thinks, that kind of thing. Or you make it, time wrap, or you give ultimatum, that kind of stuff, right? The second, type of negotiation is the integrative negotiation, right? So parties, cooperate to achieve the maximum benefit, by integrating, interests of the both parties involved. The process is, generally driven, and governed jointly. They look at the problem together. They search for the alternatives together. Try to evaluate, how do you reach to an agreeable, solution. So generally, with this integrative, technique, you get to the win-win, situation, right? So the key tenets of integrated negotiations are, focus on the interest and not on the position. They separate, people personalities from the problem. They insist on, the objective criteria, and they, invest in the options, and the mutual gain, right? So, good to know, some of the strategies. I think I'm going to skip this. There are, some elements of negotiation. I think we touched on some of these, and in fact, I am going to skip, this slide as well. Right, it basically, covers, you need to have, a strategic planning process, for any negotiations, right? You have to create, efficiencies in developing, systemic approach, to manage the negotiations. You need to synchronize, the multiple negotiations that might be, going on. You need to understand, if you are in a, business like ours, which is global, you need to understand the negotiation. How do you do that effectively across the borders and cultures, and so forth. But the key thing in here is, you need to focus on how do you maximize, the long term, value. So in the consulting business, we say, we want to be the partners, for our clients, and not, worry about the short term, SOWs, which is the statement of work, right, which will give you that immediate, revenue. But in the long run, being a partner means, you are together, thinking about, how do you bring value, to your clients, right? So you want to be, on that type of things. Okay. I have 10 more minutes remaining, and I have one more topic to cover. So I'm going to breeze through this, as well, so we can have some time for Q&A. So although, this group has been, not that interactive, which is okay as well. All right, so negotiations, or networking rather. The purpose of networking, is clearly to make new friends, acquaintances in the industry, having connections with the business partners, right? And through this new relationship, you can make progress on your career path quickly. You can sell your services, and products, fast, and so forth. And there are clear statistics out there that the networking really do drive the results, right? I guess in the social setting is your network is your Instagram, your friends on the Snapchat. On the professional setting is the LinkedIn, and so forth, right? So in a nutshell, the purpose of networking is to form, relationships, right, who can help you, get where you want to go, right? So networking, what is it, about, right? It is not, about, talking to people. It's not about swapping, business class. It's not even, about selling yourself. I guarantee it, after this session, I'll get a lot of, LinkedIn requests, and people will connect. In my opinion, that's not really a good, sustainable type of, connection, right? So the contrary to, many people think networking, is about, building the strong relationship, be it in the business sense or on the personal side, and driving, using that to propel, your own careers and so forth, right? I guarantee that, when you go to the networking events, half of the people are there just trying, to sell hard. And the sad thing is nobody goes to the networking event for the purpose of buying anything, right? Everybody's trying to see who else that they can, lean on, to propel, right? So networking is about, helping people. It's not about, always getting the help. And in the long run, is the good karma, right? It reciprocates, back to you, right? It is about, making your goal to understand the needs, before telling them about your own needs, right? So adding value, to the equation. It's not just about, who you know in the network, right? But it is also, that we call it 6 degrees of separation, right? Who do they know, right? How many different connections, that you can make, and then using this ecosystem of network, how can you, bring value to others within, your network type of things, right? It's about, nurturing your established, network, and doing follow-ups, and being impeccable about it, is, absolutely, critical, when you're trying um, to network, right? And so you need to have a strategic, a networking approach. As I mentioned earlier, networking by itself is no value, right? If I go to my LinkedIn, I got thousands of connections, but um, I only have a good, strong connection with 100 of them or 150 of them, right? There's a limit of how many, meaningful connections that you have, right? So you need to constantly think about, bringing value, and using that to drive, your own agenda, right? So the social, capital, is the, it refers to the links and the bonds people form, through friendship, through acquaintances. These links, can form through, friendship groups. Example, knowing a friend of a friend, or it could occur through, the daily social, activities, right? For example, conversation with, the person sitting next to you on the train, that kind of stuff, right? So there are three, types of, social capital. The first one is the bonding social capital, which is about, the connections, between small group of people, right? They share the same characteristics. It could be age, hobbies, relationships, sports, things of that nature, right? The bonding is the strongest, type of the social capital, and as a close relationship between, the two people is formed. The second, type of, social capital is called the bridging, social capital. It is, it's slightly different from the bonding in the fact that, the ties are not, very strong, but the links, come from the weaker connections, such as friend of a friend. So you get the referral, or colleague of an associate, make an introduction, so that you can, then find some common ground, and then get to the bridging, a social capital type of thing. The linking social capital, is an extension of bridging. For example, bridging occurs, horizontally, meaning, between the people of a similar, socio-economical, power or hierarchy. The linking, occurs. So sorry, bridging occurs in the horizontal way. The linking occurs in a vertical way, between the socio-economical, group and so forth. Right. So knowing, this, is important. I think, again, in the interest of time, I do want to leave some time for questions. I think why networking is valuable is quite, clear, and then, having a strategic, plan around networking is important. I think the key thing that I cannot, stress enough, is that look for bringing the value to your network, and in the long run, you'll be amazed the amount of opportunities that will come your way, right? Okay, so I said I was going to talk on the software leadership topic and not going to the technical side, which hopefully I've done. Clearly, we are just scratching the surface. There's a lot more out there to think about, to learn about, beyond just the things that we covered today. So hopefully this was helpful, and hopefully as you go through your journey, this will be something that you can use. All right, so I am happy to take any questions, comments, uh, anything. Was this useful?
Thank you so much, Ashvin. I personally found it useful because these are things that you might be shared or reminded of maybe on your first day, but these aren't things that they normally share with you in any curriculum. So it's definitely a good refresher that these are the basics that any leader refers to on a daily basis.
For sure.
So we have just a few minutes. So if you do have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to a Discord admin. And Ashwin, if you don't mind, we can send them over to you and connect you with a hacker offline.
Absolutely. Happy to do that. Very good. Again, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure spending Saturday morning with you guys. And enjoy the rest of the hackathon. And looking forward to seeing you guys, some of you guys in Capgemini. So, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks again, Ashwin, and thanks for kicking us off today.
Very good. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, everyone. So we hope you enjoyed the first session of the second day of the hackathon. So as usual, we will be uploading the recorded session to our YouTube channel. There were lots of lessons learned, as lots of tips and techniques, just things to remember as you start networking and making those connections in the next stage of your career. So take note, always refer back to it. It'll be available. The next event is the Leader for Leaders workshop. It's starting in just a few minutes at 10 a.m. And the challenge check-in session is still going on as well. It will be open until 1 p.m. EST today. So make sure to use the updated link in Discord for the challenge check-ins, but also keep a lookout for the Leader for Leader workshops link as well. So again, you can find the full schedule on Discord. Make sure to utilize Discord this whole weekend. We're here to help you. So once again, thank you.